I recently purchased this beautiful 1920s vintage dressing table from Etsy, and I knew the moment I saw it that it deserved a second life. There's something about vintage furniture that feels different. It carries history, beauty, and, yes, energy. So before I style it or use it every day, I want to clear the old energy and welcome in something softer, calmer, and more aligned with my life. And no matter your belief system, I think most of us understand that homes carry feeling. Objects carry feeling too. Not always in a supernatural way, but in the way they hold dust, scent, memory, neglect, care, and whatever life happened around them before they came to us. So for me, this part was about intention. It was about not dragging something straight from someone else's story into mine without pausing first. Sometimes a ritual is just a way of saying, this is the line between what was and what is now. This vanity had a life before me. I respect that. Oh, this wasn't about pretending the vanity had no history. It was the opposite. I wanted to acknowledge that it had a history before me, but also make a clear transition, like this belonged somewhere else before. Now it's here. Now it's part of my space. Now it gets to hold a different kind of energy. Sometimes the ritual is less about proving anything and more about giving yourself a moment to say, we're starting fresh from here. Before I brought it fully into my space, I wanted to give it a proper reset. Not in a way that erased its history, because that's what made me love it in the first place. But it had clearly been sitting for a while, and it needed time to air out and feel neutral before I made it mine. So the first thing I did was keep it in a separate space for a little while, just to let it breathe. I didn't want to rush it straight into the room where it was going to live. Then I gave it a gentle cleaning with warm water and a little soft liquid soap. Nothing harsh, nothing too aggressive, because the wood is old and I wanted to be careful with it. Once it was clean, I used wood wax to bring some life back into the surface. I didn't want it to look brand new. I just wanted the wood to feel cared for again. One of the biggest things was the old smell. Vintage furniture can carry that closed up, stored away scent. So I added rose-scented drawer inserts to help freshen it slowly. I like the idea of replacing that old stale smell with something softer and more me. I also changed the knobs. That was a small detail, but it made a big difference. It still feels like a vintage piece, but now it has a little bit of me in it. That may sound small, but intention is often what makes a ritual feel complete. I think that desire becomes sharper with age. By the time a woman reaches her 50s, she is pulled to move with intention. Part of that is choosing things, even furniture that aligns with overall style and doesn't lead to clutter. Not just physical clutter, emotional clutter, mental clutter, beauty clutter, the clutter of buying too much, keeping too much, tolerating too much, and living surrounded by things that do not actually support the life she wants. So if you're in the market for a beautiful vintage vanity, here's how to reset it and make it yours. First, open the room and clear the piece. Open a window. Empty the drawers. Let the vanity sit bare for a few minutes. Say something simple while you begin. This piece begins again here. Only peace, beauty, and good things remain. That is enough. You do not need to make it dramatic. Second, use a dry, soft cloth to remove loose dust from the top, the edges, mirror frame, and inside the drawers. Do not skip this. It keeps you from rubbing grit into the finish. Third, clean and lift the old residue. Put a small amount of odorless mineral spirits on a soft cloth, not directly on the vanity. wipe a small hidden area first. If it looks fine, do the rest of the top and worn edges with light pressure. This is your old aura out, old polish out, old residue out step. As you wipe, think, I am clearing away what no longer belongs here. Then let it dry fully. Fourth, touch up the scratches. Use the Minwax repair marker only on the fine scratches and thin worn lines. For your vanity, stay in the walnut/dark walnut/reddish brown family. Use a light hand. Touch the scratch, then gently wipe with a clean cloth so it blends instead of sitting on top. This is not about perfection. It is about softening what jumps out visually. Fifth, bring it back to life. After the touch-ups have settled, apply a very thin coat of Minwax paste finishing wax with a soft cloth over the top and edge areas. Let it haze lightly, then buff gently with a clean cloth. This is the revive and preserve step. It should make the surface look richer, softer, and more unified. If you remember anything about buying vintage, antique, or secondhand pieces, remember this. You are not just buying furniture. You are interrupting an object's old life and inviting it into yours. That means the first thing it needs is not styling. It needs a threshold, a pause, a little in-between space where it is no longer where it came from, but not fully absorbed into your home yet. I think that matters because homes are intimate. We sleep there, we get dressed there, we grieve there, we begin again there. So anything we bring inside should be welcomed with some kind of care, even if that care is practical, spiritual, or simply symbolic. That is how the piece begins to shift from someone else's old furniture to something with a past that now has a place in my life. And maybe that is the real beauty of secondhand things. They teach us that renewal does not always require becoming new. Sometimes renewal is being chosen again, handled gently, cleaned properly, and placed somewhere with intention. That is what I wanted for this vanity. Not a makeover, a reintroduction, a way of saying you can keep your history, but the energy changes here. Sixth, close the ritual. I placed a bowl of salt underneath the vanity overnight, not directly on the wood because this piece is old and I want to protect it, but close enough to feel like part of the clearing. For me, salt is symbolic. It represents a boundary. It's a way of saying anything heavy, stale, or not meant for this home stops here. No matter your belief system, there is something grounding about giving an old piece a moment to release where it came from before asking it to belong somewhere new. The salt was not about fear. It was about intention. It was about letting this vanity rest overnight in a neutral space before bringing it fully into mine. The next day, place just one beautiful item on it first, like a hand cream, a perfume, a brush, a small vase with flower, a ring dish. That first object is your way of claiming the piece. The best way to remember this is clean, blend, fill, and wax. That is it. This vanity represents a fresh beginning without pretending the past never happened. It is not new. It is renewed. And maybe that is why I connected to it so much, because in some small way, it reminds me that we can carry history and still be beautiful. We can be restored without being erased. That is what I want this vanity to represent. Not a place to house piles of products, not an image of perfection, not a performance of femininity, but a place for ritual, a place for care, a place where the day can begin with a little more calm and a little more self-acceptance. I am Alexis, and this is part of why I created Sleep lately. Not just to talk about sleep, but to talk about the rituals that help us return to ourselves at the end of the day. This vanity will be part of that for me. A place to take off the day, to soften the room, to put on a night scent, to care for my skin, to prepare my mind and body for rest. Because sleep does not always begin when we get into bed. Sometimes it begins in the small things we do before, the light we lower, the objects we touch, the flowers we place nearby, the way we tell our nervous system, you are safe now. So this is where I begin, and where I hope you will join me, with an old vanity, a new ritual, and the intention to make rest feel intentional again.